Hello and welcome. Today, we're diving into a really fundamental shift that's been happening in the world of finance, responsible investment. We're going to look at what it actually means, where it came from, and the key organization that's really driving it forward, the PRI.
So, let's start with a big question. For, most of history, the answer to this was a pretty simple yes. But what if that's not the whole story anymore? What if our investments could actually do more than just, grow our bank accounts?
And that question leads us right to this core idea, responsible investment. Now, this isn't about throwing financial returns out the window, not at all. It's about making traditional financial analysis even smarter by also looking at environmental, social, and governance, what everyone calls ESG factors when you're deciding where to put your money.
So what does ESG actually mean day to day? Well, it's not some vague, fuzzy concept. It's really concrete. The E for environmental, that's things like climate change and biodiversity. The S for social looks at stuff like human rights and diversity. And the G for governance, that digs into how a company is actually run. Its board structure, how much its execs are paid, and if it's fair with its taxes. These are basically the three pillars that responsible investors are analyzing.
But here's the thing, this idea didn't just pop up out of nowhere. It's actually got a pretty rich history, and it's evolved from this kind of niche concept into a major global framework that influences literally trillions of dollars.
Yeah, this timeline really shows the journey. The first seeds were planted way back in 1971 with the first socially responsible fund. But things really picked up steam in the 1980s with the massive disinvestment from apartheid South Africa. Then you fast forward, and by 2015 you've got the UN Sustainable Development Goals creating this global roadmap. And now the conversation is so advanced that we're seeing these deep dive reports on the legal frameworks for impact investing. It's really gone from a moral stance to a super sophisticated part of finance.
Okay, so with all this momentum building, the movement really needed a way to get organized and set some standards. And that's where this organization comes in, the Principles for Responsible Investment, or as most people know it, the PRI.
So the PRI was launched back in 2006, and it's not just another industry club. It's a UN-supported initiative. It was created because it was becoming super clear that these ESG issues were real, material financial risks and opportunities that investors just couldn't afford to ignore anymore. That UN backing gives it incredible credibility and global reach.
And their mission is, it's ambitious. This quote gets right to the heart of it. The goal here isn't just for a few investors to do a little bit better. It's about fundamentally rewiring the entire global financial system to be more sustainable for the long haul. That's the key. We're talking about systemic change.
Okay, so that's the big picture. But how does this actually work for the thousands of investors who sign on? Well, it all boils down to a commitment to 6 core principles. Let's take a look at how that plays out in the real world.
The absolute foundation is making a public commitment to these 6 principles. In a nutshell, anyone who signs on agrees to do a few key things. They'll bring ESG into their investment analysis. They'll be active owners and engage with companies. They'll push companies for better ESG disclosure. They'll promote these ideas in the industry. They'll work together with other investors. And finally, they'll report on their own progress.
And the PRI doesn't just ask for a signature and then, walk away. It provides this incredible support system. It offers up tons of resources and tools. It coordinates what's called stewardship, which is just a fancy way of saying investors team up to use their combined influence on companies. And on top of all that, it works with policymakers to help create rules that actually support this whole responsible investment ecosystem. Which really leaves us with one final thought. As huge issues like climate change and social inequality become more and more central to our economies, is this approach going to stop being a special category and just become the definition of smart investing? Something to think about. Thanks for joining me for this explainer.